Remember when Ark was fun, interesting, and people just loved it in general, honestly? And what is happening to it now? And if you have not followed this, maybe you don't honestly want to know. If I had to summarize it up, I would say that the current situation of Ark is kind of a lot worse than what happened with Dishonored and then Dishonored 2, how that ruined the franchise, or how Diablo 2 was a good game, Diablo 3 was bad, and now Diablo 4 is the worst thing that has ever happened to humanity since not sliced bread.
The moment in time when a publisher of one of the world's most successful IPs in the history of gaming has effectively outed themselves. Because it's one
By the way, I absolutely love this picture. It's extracting oil and dinosaurs in the same vein, and they're walking and they're living.
has effectively outed themselves. Because it's one thing to make fancy PR splashes, but it's another to file official documents with the SEC. And that's where Snail Games, the publisher and owner of the Ark franchise, has put their own incompetence on full display. Now, when we take a look at these numbers, the damage here is simply staggering. Nearly 49% of a once vaunted and rabid player base has been shed in the span of a year, and the money printing machine
Not surprising at all. There was a lot of desperation already from the company to get more money because they messed up already so heavily with the things that they decided to do.
of the Ark Survival franchise, at one time a surefire win, has begun to crumble. How does a publisher who, according to Wiki, owns the fourth most sold game in the history of gaming with Survival Evolved lose?
Wait, what? Ark is the fourth most. I had no idea. Minecraft makes sense. GTA 5 makes sense. V Sports. A lot of fat people are still fat, so I don't think this worked out. And Ark Survival Evolved. Wow. Mario Kart, PUBG, Red Dead, and the Oregon Trail? I don't even know what this is. Wow. Very interesting.
Fourth most sold
By the way, Starfield should. Oh no, Starfield is Game Pass, so it doesn't have sales. But looking at this, Starfield should technically be around 25.
game in the history of gaming with Survival Evolved lose that many players in a year? It's an interesting question for sure, and one that we need to probe in today's video. If at any time you feel like supporting the channel, play the story behind Ark. Intro into what has happened to Ark, call it the perfect comparison, and it comes to us via Bethesda and their now highly successful shadow drop of the Oblivion remaster. Now, for all intents and purposes, and
Not a shadow drop. Once again, Nate the Hate and all of these leakers are industry plans, fake sock puppet accounts by Xbox or Bethesda or Microsoft. They are 100. This was a marketing campaign, a very successful one at that, by the way. But this was a marketing campaign.
according to many critics, this is the true way you pull off a successful remaster. Every bit of the loved original found under the surface, but now greatly enhanced using the latest tech, in this case Unreal Engine, and all with subtle but substantial changes and improvements made to the core mechanics and game systems. But for the purposes of our comparison, we need to put on our role-playing hats and take a look at what this entire Oblivion remaster could have been. Everyone ready? Okay, let's get started. Imagine if Bethesda and Virtua Studios took a completely different path with this release that saw you purchase the Oblivion remaster, you download the game, it runs, albeit not well, but it runs. It's Oblivion with a shinier coat of paint. You go through the whole character creator, maybe make a completely off-center character, and then you get to see that iconic opening cutscene of Uriel Septim and that Patrick Stewart monologue. I mean, it's all there. It gives you shivers as you first remembered. At this point, you make your way through the Imperial prison, escorted by the Blades, fighting off those endless waves of assassins, rats, and goblins, and finally,
One-shotting the zombie? Oof. Oof. Someone's playing on easy.
you reach the iconic gates, and once opened, will let you free into the open world of Cyrodiil. Now, this is the very moment you have been waiting for. That famous Bethesda moment where you get to come out into the open world, but try as hard as you can, you simply cannot get those gates to open. You furiously grab the game box and start reading over these very small disclosures, only to see that the Oblivion remaster will be delivered to you in small chunks every 2 to 4 months. This chunk was just the opening scene. The next portion will gain you access, possibly, to the Imperial City, and you'll be able to claim the full Oblivion remaster somewhere between 2 and 3 years after you bought it, maybe a little longer. We'll just have to wait and see if the studio can actually stick to the roadmap. So, when I reduce it down to the ridiculous,
This is just YouTube. No, this is YouTube
like that, you're probably saying to yourself, no way in hell would I ever go through that. Why would anyone consent to experiencing a remastered game in this manner? But for fans of Ark, that's exactly what they've been through, plus a second, third, and...
So, one thing I will say about all of this, considering the success of this remaster, we know that the other remasters are on their way. But most likely, the next one is obviously Fallout 3, and after that, it's going to be Morrow, I think. But the Morrow in part could change a lot, maybe. But that's currently my guess. It's just a guess, nothing to go by, really. But Fallout 3, they will not be as kind as the Oblivion remaster, because they probably didn't expect the Oblivion remaster to be this big. Again, Todd and Bethesda did not want this to succeed, because the Oblivion remaster's success proves that modern day Bethesda is just shit. It proves that their modern products are just not good. They're just bad. No one likes them. That's the life.
fourth helping of corporate bullshit heaped on top. As mentioned in the intro, the numbers here are staggering. According to Wiki, Ark Survival Evolved is the fourth most sold game in the history of gaming, with now over 79 million copies sold, bested only by juggernauts such as Wii Sports, GTA 5, and to no one's surprise, Minecraft. Now, at its time, it was a genre-defining survival sandbox experience.
Do you think GTA 6 will sell 500 million units in the first 3 months? I think it will.
Featuring a combo of a multitude of attractive features, the first and foremost of which was breeding and taming dinosaurs. Now, where it all starts to come to a grinding halt, though, can be found back in June 2021, with the release of Genesis Part 2, the final paid expansion for Survival Evolved, and of course in June 2022, with the release of Fjordur, the last free non-canonical map released for the game. As once the paid expansions were over and done with, Studio Wildcard, the creative minds behind the success of Survival Evolved, began to realize the sheer reality of game development. You see, it takes money, a lot of money. And even for a small to moderate-sized studio like Wildcard, those month-to-month...
Well, Blade Obscure Expedition 33 was developed by 33 people, and it only cost $5.5 million. So, you know, the fact that even a 2D side-scroller nowadays from AAA costs $200 million... Sands of Time, Prince of Persia, by the way. Ubisoft, fucking slop company. And currently the average cost for making a game in AAA is $500 million. It's not going down, okay? It's not going down.
Cost are not cheap. In tandem with the continued cost and essentially no new revenue
Riddick
coming in for DLC sales,
it's Riddick and his mixed family. Very cool.
Wildcard were also facing another existential threat, one of their own creation that was out in public and starting to reach a boiling point. Ark 2.
Bro, I forgot that Riddick is here, okay? Jesus. Is he gonna attempt to drive a car in space? Oh shit.
This was revealed way back at the Game Awards in 2020. Ark 2 was touted to be the next
Oh
evolution
no,
in the
Riddick,
Ark franchise,
watch out.
featuring Vin Diesel along with Souls-like combat, but the issue was again money, or the lack of it. How was the studio going to...
Bro, what the fuck is this shit? Riddick is like, stop. I can feel a necromonger. And
Ark franchise
look.
featuring Vin Diesel along with Souls-like combat, but the issue was again.
And his wife with a bow who's supposed to be a warrior is like, ah, you know this bow? Yeah, it's just for looks, okay? The DI went out the window the moment shit started hitting the fan.
Money, or the lack of it.
I like how they're getting surrounded and everyone's like, what? Do I, like, pull out a weapon or something? I'm confused. Damn, Riddick. Damn, boy.
How was the studio going to get from Genesis Part 2 in mid-2021 to a fully...
Wait. Damn.
Genesis Part 2 in mid-2021
Damn.
to a fully released Ark 2 project with no major sources of revenue? The answer here was to remake the same Ark Survival Evolved experience, list it in early access to give the studio some level of protection, and to release it in small chunks back to the same players.
This is so funny.
That had supported them over the years with Survival Evolved, all while charging a premium price tag alongside paid DLC and, of course, premium mods. At first, the truth about this project was not made public, but the speculation that Ark Survival Ascended was a silent crowdfunding effort by the studio to help fund the development of Ark 2 was finally confirmed and made public in September 2023 with this admission. Quote, "Another factor is for business reasons. Developing a next-generation sequel, while no longer releasing paid expansion packs, has proven difficult for our studio's long-term survival. So, we need to continue generating revenue while we develop Ark 2. Okay, so let's go back to that Oblivion what if we talked about earlier, and let me add this little bit into the mix. Along with the remaster being sold back to the players in small chunks, now imagine if Bethesda simultaneously shut down the official servers for that original Oblivion 2006 game. So, not only was the new game not complete, but the studio went in and turned off the support and official servers for the game that everyone was still out there enjoying. At which point, we would probably read about this in the news where an angry mob had descended on Bethesda's front door demanding Todd Howard being cast into the realm of Oblivion, and that...
Yeah, that sounds about the smartest choice, but the Bethesda fans will never do that, sadly.
Gate destroyed. But the sheer insanity here is that's exactly what Studio Wildcard and Snail Games did to Ark fandom. Official servers and all studio support for Survival Evolved ended midnight September 30th, 2023, the very same day they admitted they needed the money from the sales of Survival Ascended to fund the development of Ark 2, severely fracturing trust and faith in the studio. Survival Ascended came into the world kicking and screaming, originally slated to simultaneously release on all platforms, instead being released in waves, first to PC in late October 2023, with Xbox and...
Well, to be fair, PC is the only thing that matters, so there you kind of go. Ark has mods, right? I'm not making this up. Ark actually had mods.
PlayStation split out into the 3rd and 4th weeks of November. And here begins the downward spiral for the Ark franchise as a whole. You see, even on top shelf, PC rig Survival Ascended was far from acceptable, while consoles reported horrible graphics and major performance issues. It was a nightmare scenario for Wildcard. Not only had they sacrificed the old game and pushed those players away to their own private servers, but the new game was barely functional, only released with a single map, and the review scores were positively abysmal. Even now, in May 2025, Survival Ascended currently sits at an overall mixed rating on Steam, with only 59% of the reviews coming in as positive. Whereas the
Don't people not even play Survival Ascendant? I remember the fact that there's less people playing this than the old one.
Older game, the game that the studio had shut down to drive players over to Ascended to boost those overall sales, still maintains a very positive rating. Again on Steam, currently showing a score of 84%, which is a night and day difference between the two. And here's where Ark's owner and publisher Snail Games...
By the way, I feel that him explaining that you got the new Ark game in chunks is not even really right. Because you didn't get it in chunks. You just got unfinished products with things missing from the old game that should be in there. And it wasn't really like in chunks. It was just stuff that shouldn't be missing was missing for no reason. And it was really bad.
Games now comes into play. And thanks to their recent SEC filings via their 2024 annual report, we get to see just how badly this franchise has suffered. Now, buried deep into this 100-plus pages of filings, we finally see this. Quote, during the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2024, Ark Survival Evolved and Ark Survival Ascended combined for an average total of 213,000 daily active users. They go on to say DAUs.
That's not a lot, actually.
On the Steam and Epic platforms, so this is PC only, as compared to 416,479 in the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2023. They finish up by saying, we define daily active users as the number of unique users who play any given game on any given day. So,
bro, by the way, like, using player number counts and the fiscal year is kind of fucking stupid. Let me Google one thing. So, what is the most common fiscal year? Federal government typically runs a fiscal year from October 1 to September 30. Non-profit organizations many non-profit run a fiscal year from July 1 to July 30. Okay, see? The fiscal year is summarized in the simplest sense, but this is like the official version of what a fiscal year is. A fiscal year is not finished until the new year's budget has been fully approved and all the taxes have been done in companies. That's typically what a fiscal year actually is, and that can go up to 4 months into the next year. So when they're saying fiscal year 2023, they actually mean probably 4 months into 2024. So the fact that they represent average player numbers with fiscal year is so fucking redundantly pointless. It's insane.
Okay, so to break this down into the context of our timeline, in 2023, the Ark franchise on PC platforms combined was seeing DAUs, or daily active user counts, in excess of 416,000 players. And remember that Survival Ascended launched in late 2023 on PC, which then takes us into 2024, where again combined numbers from the publisher confirmed that nearly half those DAUs were present. It's now fallen by almost half, down to 213,000 DAUs. Overall, we've seen some...
Do they have damage control even in this situation? Doesn't feel like it. Dude, Ark players have been gotten fucked so much, though. It's actually sad.
Meteoric rises and dramatic crashes in gaming lore, with recent history bringing to mind The Day Before. Once Steam's most wishlisted game that launched, closed, saw the studio shut down, and Steam enforce a rare mandatory refund to all customers within the span of a week.
When Steam says mandatory, that means anyone who chooses to press the refund button gets it. But anyone who doesn't press the refund button doesn't get it. When people were talking about, oh, we won big when the Day Before got removed from Steam and everyone got a refund, that's not actually true. We still kind of lost because a lot of people didn't refund it. So the people who made this game got away with everything.
But Fantastic and The Day Before were far from a known commodity. The Ark franchise, however, is. It is established and well known, and to see Snail's own records essentially admitting that their bread and butter franchise, which accounts for nearly 90% of its total revenue, had in the span of a year shed nearly 50% of its player base, well, that's just mind-blowing. In fact, across the board in 2024, net bookings and total sales for Ark were down significantly despite the launch of Ark Survival Ascended, with only a large deferred income posting able to push the revenue into a better state than that can be found in 2023. Now, if you're Snail Games, you take a look at those dramatically bad numbers for 2024. The slump is certainly visible, and no matter which way you try to spin it, they're not going to look good to anyone. So what do you try to do? Well, first you strike a deal with PlayStation so that all PS players who subscribe to PlayStation Plus get free access to Survival Ascended as of the beginning of May 2025. And that's certain to drive up those slumping daily active user counts and impress the shareholders, right? Or
Well, for the first month, I guess. True, but after, again, nothing can save the fact that the new version of Ark is bad. That it's missing features. It's just not good. There's also technical issues with it still, I think. But they need people to come to the new one because they have such an untapped amount of players who are playing the old one but not have bought the new one. And that is the big problem. That is what they're trying to push here, actually. That is the main reason why Snail Games is doing what they are doing, by the way. That is the exact reason why they're doing it. They just want the money that they would get from it. But the reality is, if they cared about daily active players, they would be pushing both games because one is significantly better than the other. And at this point, there are people who are watching this video and they have no idea what Ark even is. Simple as that. Okay? Most sold game in the world, Minecraft, doesn't make the difference that most people don't actually play Minecraft nowadays, or have never even played Minecraft at this point. And, well, you can get people to play the new game because it's free, but the reality is, who gives a shit? It's still a bad game. People aren't going to stop playing it. So this is like only a solution for the first month. And after that, it's downhill once again.
At least it should, in theory, bolster those counts. Also, in one of the damnedest and most interesting turn of events, Snail Games announced at the recent Games Developer Conference in San Francisco that they themselves, not Studio Wildcard, would be developing and selling back to players as part of the 10-year anniversary of Survival Evolved, a new non-canonical map called Aquatica. Now, luckily, I recorded and saved this trailer before Snail Games decided to delist the video from their official YouTube channel, probably
this was AI slop.
Due to the overwhelmingly negative reception it received, which, just take a look at the damage here. At the time I grabbed a screenshot of the carnage, this was sitting
But to be fair, I don't give a shit if this trailer is AI slop.
At 1.5 thousand upvotes to now over 57,000 downvotes. Not only was this trailer one of the most egregious displays of AI gone horribly wrong, but the circumstances and drama unfolding surrounding Aquatica behind the scenes were simply incredible. You see, Aquatica, which was originally thought to be coming to Survival Ascended, was then announced as dropping sometime in the near future for Survival Evolved? That's right. The same Evolved that had seen all official servers sunsetted and studio support removed way back in September 2023. So, not only was Snail Games attempting to sell their love letter, their 10-year anniversary map, back to those Ark players, but they were also going to attempt to open up official servers for the very game they had closed in order to milk those players once again. Adding fuel to the fire was...
Yeah, needless to say, not a great plan, okay? Not a great plan.
It's a story that broke that the Snail Games developers...
What's next,
as they say, the numbers don't lie. And based on Snail's own admission in this SEC filing, seeing a nearly even split of revenue between consoles and PC in 2024, and throwing into the mix the comparison of current Steam player counts between the still more popular Survival Evolved and the newer Survival Ascended, well...
Oh, it's actually going up slowly. Well, it does make sense. I think previously the disparity was larger. It does make sense because, again, newer games do have kind of a priority over older games if they're by the same company and whatnot, and Steam in general. So, people are gonna, for every one player that this game gets, 5 go to here. It's just a matter of time, to be honest. But again, that doesn't mean quality.
Survival Ascended, well, it produces a no-win scenario where Wildcard and Snail have a tiger by the tail without many options for escaping unscathed. Their plan to resell Ascended back to their players failed badly on several levels, including gross overconfidence in what they felt players were willing to tolerate, and more importantly, what players were willing to purchase. Ark as a whole has suffered greatly since 2023, both in sales and interest in the franchise is further evidenced when you take a look at the lifetime Google Trends charts showing the YouTube search for just Ark Survival. And despite the newer Survival Ascended launching in late 2023, where you see this small spike, overall, the remaster has done little to energize gamers to re-engage with Ark. Even switching the search category away from YouTube over to web search and general searches shows much the same result, although that spike seems slightly higher around late 2023, which could possibly be attributed to many people simply wanting information about that remaster or possibly wanting information about Ark 2, which, by the way, at this point has been confirmed by Studio Wildcard to still be in production with no ETA, although Snail Games has previously
Come on, Riddick, fuck him up.
stated that the game was slated to drop in late 2024,
Summon your car and drive him over.
which has come and gone. However, overall player-based sentiment is one of disbelief that Ark 2 will launch anytime soon, if ever. The decline of Ark, once Snail Games' gravy train, can also be confirmed when you start to take a look at what Snail is attempting to do by pivoting away by placing so much reliance on Ark revenue. They mention many times in these financials revenue generated from Bellwright. They also mention a multitude, God help them, of small indie projects that have been acquired alongside their new venture, listen to this one, AI-created drama on-demand series.
Women are gonna buy this like hotcakes. Downloads 50k plus. 100% women, okay? It is what it is. Anyway, that was Leighton Buzz Light, Lightbeard. 10 out of 10. Bye-bye.